On the phone today, you will hear an example of a public-private partnership that was started in Pennsylvania by Robert Full, who was with the Region 13 organization of counties. What were the driving forces led to the establishment of this regional effort?
Well, I think that when it came down to is the private sector, especially the large corporations, those being of Westinghouse, First Energy, the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and so forth, they in their own rights began to see complexion of the impacts of large-scale events across the world were taking within their own businesses and so forth. And then at the local level, they got to see that we had a government model referred to as Pennsylvania Region 13 Task Force, which we were able to bring 13 counties in the city of Pittsburgh together in a cooperative forum that under an intergovernmental agreement to deal from the government level of all the threats from an all hazards an emergency and also the threat of terrorism, and to be able to appropriately respond, plan, train, exercise, drill, and respond, and then recover as well. With that said, all those companies were participating in the government model, and if government can do it, and with all the egos and all the competition among government, lo and behold, if in fact the business community said, you know what, if they can do it, and there's everybody can remain with their own separate autonomy, but working together, we're so much stronger than being a separate entity. That really they put it together themselves, and so. With that said, the business community got together and at the table and said, how can we better prepare our companies and our businesses to be able to deal with a catastrophic emergency or a terrorism event? What that we could do to take care of ourselves? What can we do to take care of each other? And then what can we offer to government? It's no secret that 85% of all the nation's resources belong in the private sector, certainly not in the government sector. And with that, there's a tremendous amount of capacity and tools and resources that are available within the private sector that the government is just sitting there for the taking in those cases of extreme emergencies. So they did it themselves. And I applauded the effort, and being a part of the original board that was brought together as the government representative, I was extraordinarily impressed with the leadership of the first chairman, Dr. Lauren Roth from UPMC, as well as several of the other folks that were just phenomenal in Reach Matsey from Westinghouse, and just so many of the other folks here. Ken also from Westinghouse. They were just amazing how they took this thing and ran with it. So, and then once the big guys were involved, I'll tell you what, it was just a matter of everybody then joining in. They wanted to be a part of it, and that's really the success of it. And then having an emergency here and there, and to be able to use the tools and use it and have it to come to fruition, I think that it was proof positive the value of it.
What was probably the biggest test when you were first getting started? What were some of the early hurdles that had to be overcome?
Well, the earliest hurdle was each individual in their own right are very fine people, but having the fact that you could sit there and set aside the competitive edge and the competitive nature of the business here, and really come in there with the full intent of what can we do to add to society? What can we do to be a part of this? After September 11th, there was a tremendous outpouring from everybody. They wanted to do something, and they didn't know what to do. And I know in my former physician in the Allegheny County Emergency Services. I've got to tell you that after September 11th, we were inundated with calls. What can we do? What can we do to help? And so this was, I think, a personal gratification on these CEOs and these high-level corporate folks, but also then to get them into the table. I mean, day to day, they're in the competitive nature, but they also came to realize, you know what, the competition among our companies are good, and if something impacts one, it indirectly impacts the other, and it also impacts a region and so forth. And so whenever they are there, sitting at the table, so that was one of the first. And then the financial side of the house is the next thing is how would you fund this particular activity? And really with the initial 6 or 7 corporate partners, you know, they put in the seed money. With all due respect to all those big corporations, I mean, large-scale contributions, $25,000 each a year, in-kind employee and intern services, office space, and so forth. I mean, for the companies that were involved, quite frankly, it's a drop in a bucket. But for a small business or something, that would be huge. But, you know, and then to be able to sustain this, and it was, you know, working hard, put out a product, you know, start off the things, the day-to-day things that most affect businesses, and that's the all hazards types emergencies. That's going to be your weather events, your floods, your power outages, the things that we know that occur every single day, and to be able to be a conduit for business, to be able to put the information out. So one of the initial things is get the name out, but get the name out there in some form. With a product that could be helpful to anybody. It didn't matter what size business you were, or even if you were a common resident. And so, you know, but it was, again, getting together, having a comfort level among the top players. Then it was the finances, and then to get the word out and get a tool out there or material out there that would show real benefit to everybody.
Bob, one of the questions was how did you you certainly had a government alliance of counties. Did you create a separate group for the private sector and then merge them together through an executive committee? How did you bridge the gap between public-private?
Well, you know, within the Pennsylvania Region Task Force organization, again, and its genesis was back in November of 1998 with the intergovernment cooperative between the 14 governments in southwestern Pennsylvania. The organization structure was set up in groups of committees, and there were various committees were established to focus in on specific areas in regards to either public safety or various aspects of business or whatever. And the committees sort of went down like law enforcement, public health, and emergency medical. There was a business, there was a military, there was an agricultural committee, there was a committee that handled all of the technical issues, technology and communications committee. There was a human resources committee and so forth. And initially within the task force, there was the business committee, and a lot of these folks did have a representative on that committee. And it was very good, and they contributed into the government model that we had. But then it became important to those big corporations because they had the huge number of people and everything else like this. They wanted to take some of the key leaders that were involved in the Region 13 Business Committee. They really thought of putting together the model of let's have this big business model, which ended up being the Pittsburgh Regional Coalition for Homeland Security, and we'll go out there and do this. Well, as it turned out, then when it was all said and done, the Region 13 Task Force, after they formed the coalition, then literally contracted for the services of the coalition to serve as the foundation for the business committee. And we were able to translate then some small amounts of Homeland Security monies that were available to us for business and continuity planning, as well as critical infrastructure planning, to be able to help, number one, offset the costs of the coalition, but also the coalition then provided deliverables and actually a lot of the conduit for the task force to be able to reach, with all due respect, into the entire business community, both small, medium, and large-sized businesses, as well as the other areas that are covered within the coalition, the educational sector, the healthcare arena, the utility sectors, the chemical manufacturing sectors, and so forth. The coalition covers the full gambit of essentially the critical infrastructure sectors that have been identified under the Department of Homeland Security.
Very good. Can you talk about an example of when all this came together? I know there were several major political things going on. Can you talk about maybe how the partnership actually came together to work together on something that was proof positive, I guess?
Well, I guess the most significant the most significant benefit of the entire relationship, and that I am aware of at this point in time, that having this paid the greatest amount of dividend and really demonstrated its worth was when the G20 was selected to be in the city of Pittsburgh back in 2009, at which time, is anybody that's familiar with the G20, this is literally the United States being a member of the 20 largest economies in the world. And the G20, the President of the United States sits on the G20. It's not like some low-level ambassador or something. It's actually